It was bad. I was like a baby, like terrified of like everything. Yeah. So that was really rough. Like I've truly never been that scared in my life. Like not even remotely close. I'm Yuki, joined by my co-host Reggie, and you're listening to Modern Day Hippie, the podcast about doing drugs in a responsible, fun, and safe way to improve your life. Before we jump into today's episode, a quick legal disclaimer. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Our goal is to educate and inform others about the realities of substance use in an engaging format. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to attempt to recreate anything found in this episode or any of our other content. We are not confessing to any acts stated in this podcast. The content in this episode should not be treated as factual or real in any way. Now, with that, we hope you enjoyed today's show. All right, guys. Today, we're talking about a slightly heavier topic than we have in any past episodes. Specifically, this past weekend, I actually had the first truly bad trip of my life. I can honestly say that before this one, in my 100 plus trips beforehand, had never had a single negative experience. I had felt anxious before. I felt like mildly paranoid, but I was always able to distract myself, to not focus on it, and to pull myself out of it. But man, this weekend I had what felt like, from a mental perspective, like a near-death experience. And it was like partially traumatizing in some ways, but at the same time, even now, a few days later, as we're recording this, I already feel like I'm getting a lot of value and reflection out of it. And I very much see it as something that in the long run will be, I think, very constructive and I think positive for me in the future. So yeah, we're going to dive into that today, can talk about the story. And actually, believe it or not, this was my first time tripping with Reggie, like in person, for a while. I don't know, at least a couple months, right?
Yeah, man, I feel so bad about that.
Yeah, no, it's all good, and really, like it wasn't your fault, Reggie, and I just wasn't prepared. I think I dove in too deep in an environment that I wasn't totally familiar with, and it just it sent me into a really dark place.
Yeah, so just for context here, this was also Yuki's first time trying penis envy mushrooms, which are we've talked about them on the pod before. They're some of like the stronger strains that you can actually get for mushrooms. And, I tried to warn him that they'd be pretty fucking strong, but I guess I might have underplayed how strong they were.
Well, it's funny because like we didn't even have a scale to measure it out. Like I have no fucking clue how much that was, but we each took 2 squares of the chocolate mushrooms, which for me, usually 2 squares is like plenty. When my girlfriend and I are just having a chill night in, we'll each take a square and a half or 2 and be feeling really good. But we did 2 squares, and then I don't know, if I had to guess, maybe like a little more than 2 grams each of like the penis envy mushrooms.
Yeah, it was probably like 2.5.
Yeah. And so between that and the chocolates, that's about a total of like, let's say 6 to 7 grams worth of mushrooms, which is a lot. Like I've tripped really hard in the past, but last time I tripped that hard was, I think, over a year and a half ago, like to that extent. Like I very heavily ego deathed, and it's happened to me several times before, but I haven't gone that hard in the last like year or 2.
Yeah, man. So walk me through exactly what happened with you, because I was honestly just surprised whenever you kind of like left the room and just didn't come back for a while with your girlfriend. Obviously, I wouldn't have left you alone, but yeah, what was going on, dude?
Yeah, I'm trying to think through it in the context of like set and setting that people talk about in psychedelics and tripping. And I think even just from the beginning, I had like a level of just unfamiliarity with the environment, because actually I went to your place, Reggie, and I've been there a couple of times, but I haven't spent a lot of time there. And like when we were coming up on the drug, you had a few friends over who I hadn't quite like met or knew really well. And so usually if I'm tripping, that wouldn't bother me. But I think with that big of a dose, and it really started to hit like in the back of my head, like that was kind of lingering. Plus the fact that we had a really big sushi dinner right before, and that did a number on my stomach. Like I knew that it was like a dinner that would really like kind of fuck up my stomach even before we did shrooms, because as soon as we like ate the mushrooms, my stomach feels how it does after the last meal. I was like, okay, like you need to go like try to take a poop, just like make some room in there. And that combined with the shrooms, which I know always just completely fuck up my stomach, was a bad combination. And so I think what really like started off like my downward spiral on my bad trip was having like the most intense like stomach pains I've ever felt on psychedelics. And that made me feel like I wanted to vomit. Like I started getting like sweaty, my mouth started getting dry. Like, you know, all those signs that your body gives you when it's like, oh, like you're going to throw up soon. And so that started kind of like wigging me out. And also like the shrooms, like in that state, it was just making me a little bit paranoid because right after we took the shrooms, we each did like a bump or so of 2CB. And I started like thinking this thought in my head of like, oh, what if there was something in the 2CB that's not supposed to be there? You know, like what if it's like fentanyl? Like what if I like OD'd myself or something? And like that's a super illogical thought because I literally tested it. Like I test all of my drugs. I use fentanyl strips. I tested everything, dude. And I couldn't get over that fact. I'm like, why do I feel so sick? Like I've never thrown up on drugs before like this. And in my head, I was like, dude, if I throw up, like that to me meant that like something was seriously wrong. So I was trying so hard to just like breathe through it. Cause I'm like, in my head, I was like, as soon as I throw up, I feel like I'm just going to bite the dust or something.
That's wild, man. Honestly, dude, I'm not even that surprised about like the stomach pains because like whenever we actually like think back to what you had Taco Bell, and then right after that, you literally ordered a sushi roll. You ordered a sushi roll called the Big Daddy, which is a fried sushi roll on top of some other like raw fish sushi stuff that we were eating. And then we also had mochi and ice cream for dessert. Like honestly, like the dairy and the raw fish and the Taco Bell, like shrooms aside, would fuck up your stomach, bro. Like,
dude, yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't put those things together, but you're totally right. I ate like the worst possible shit that I could have eaten. Like I should have stuck with like a salad. And dude, that veggie sushi roll that you got was actually fire. Like I should have just gotten two of those.
Light, bro. It like makes you feel good.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I would say like takeaway number one from this is actually be way more cognizant of what food I eat before a trip, especially if I'm eating a lot. Because honestly, I hadn't eaten that much that day. I was like starving when we went to dinner and I was like completely pigging out. Like I ordered way too much food.
Yeah. And honestly, dude, my stomach was upset too, but like obviously not as upset as yours because I wasn't eating nearly as much like fried food and stuff or as much raw fish. And like after y'all left, like I was on the toilet for like an hour. But like, Jesus. I mean, like, but it wasn't like a negative thing for me. I actually felt, for some reason, I just felt really good to like cleanse my body. Like it felt like just what I really needed. But yeah, I definitely got diarrhea, bro. So I feel you. But yeah, man, that's fucked. Like,
yeah, I think another thing might have been like, it's literally been probably a year and a half or 2 years since I've taken like raw mushrooms, like, you know, like, what is it, like air dried mushrooms or whatever. And I think I just forgot like how much they can fuck up my stomach. Cause I know you've done the penis envy shrooms a little more recently. And I've just been like super spoiled with my mushroom chocolates like for forever. And I think my stomach was just like, oh, this is so much worse than we remember it being. So that was rough. Long? Damn. Yeah, dude, I mean, I'm telling you.
Because I've done raw shrooms, like even like penis envy aside, just raw shrooms in general, like at least like 3 or 4 times. Like in that same time frame.
Yeah, I don't know. We have the chocolates. I love the chocolates.
You are spoiled, bro.
Yeah, honestly. Oh, dude, speaking of which, actually, our chocolate provider, they're coming out with gummies. I think they're shroom gummies. And they gave us a sample in the last batch that we got. And we haven't tried them yet, but I'm really excited. Like they look sick. That's awesome. Yeah. So I'm excited for that. I'll let you know how those are next time we do them. You're at the club and the music is thumping, but you've got nothing left in the tank. So what do? Sniff some cacao. Yup, you heard that right. Sniff some cacao. It's the hottest new trend in the club and party scene. One bum-sized sniff of raw chocolatey powder contains the caffeine equivalent to a half cup of coffee, and boom, it hits instantly. And the best part is you can now sniff cacao anytime, anywhere. Right out in the open, in front of the DJ booth or the stage, even at the VIP table with your friends. Now, how does that happen without drawing unwanted attention? Snogo's spring-loaded bump straws make it possible. These classy, triple mirror polished bump straws are the safest, most discreet way to enjoy sniffing cacao. In fact, you've most likely already seen people wearing Snogo's bump straws as pendants around their necks without even knowing it. Discover why sniffing cacao using Snogo bump straws is being called the biggest revolution in partying since the invention of rock and roll. Jump on over to snogostraws.com to learn more. That's SNOGOSTRAWS.com and use discount code MDH15 at checkout for 15% off your entire order. Now, back to kicking off my bad trip. Another thing that I realized like kind of set me further down was like when I started feeling just physically bad, like, you know, dry mouth, like sweaty, like way too hot. I was sitting next to my girlfriend, and as a way to like reassure myself, I would just like turn to her and be like, hey, like, how you doing? You feeling good? Just to try to maybe confirm that like I'm not the only one who feels a little nauseous or whatever. And she'd usually be like, yeah, you know, like I'm doing all right. I'm fine. And I asked her that a couple of times in probably a pretty short span of time. And at some point, like she kind of realizes that something is up. And in hindsight, like the way we were sitting on your couch, so you know how we were both in kind of those like individual like chairs sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
they're
so
like recliner couches for
yeah, exactly. And like really, really nice couch. But like we kind of had our individual seats. In between us, we each had our own armrest. And so I felt like really far from her, and I would like hold her hand and squeeze it. But usually when we're tripping at home, like we're just cuddling on the couch, and I just like having that like human contact with her when I'm tripping. Like I do think that helps chill me out if I need to be chilled out. But I felt so distant from her, and I was like, oh my God, I can't just like hug or like cuddle my girlfriend to feel better. Like I felt so isolated and alone, dude. That was tough. And so at one point after I asked her, I'm like, how you doing? I turned to her, I'm like, I'm not feeling good. Like, I don't feel good. And, you know, like she reacts immediately. She takes me like into your bathroom just so we can like chill and be out of the room. Cause, you know, we're like playing a TV show. There's really nice lights. Like you have a fucking sick setup, Reggie. I think I just need like less stimulation. And we're in the bathroom. I like really start spiraling. Like that's the point where I realize that I'm like, basically ego deathing. Like, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I am. I don't know like anything. And my body just goes back to that thought of like, oh, if I throw up, like something is seriously wrong. And it's weird. I like remember everything that happened, but it's also a blur. Like it was like my girlfriend trying to like talk to me, trying to distract me. We tried watching something like on her phone to distract me, but I was literally like shaking and like rocking myself back and forth because in my head, I literally thought that like I could possibly die like physically, whether it was from throwing up for whatever reason, but also like I felt really tired for whatever reason. And I kept on feeling like I wanted to nod off. But as soon as my eyes would close, my body would just start like shaking. Like I almost started getting worried I had like a seizure or something, which I've never had a seizure or anything like that in my life. But it was almost like my body didn't believe that I would be able to go to sleep and ever wake back up. And I kept telling my girlfriend, like she would tell me like, hey, just close your eyes. Like it'll pass. Like, you know, it'll pass. And like in the back of my head, like, yes, I knew that, but I'd never been this like absolutely terrified and mortified of closing my eyes or trying to go to sleep. Cause my stomach still felt like World War III was going on. Every time I let out gas, I wasn't sure if I had to shit my pants, if I had to throw up. And I was like, it was bad. I was like a baby, like terrified of like everything. Yeah. So that was really rough. Like I've truly never been that scared in my life. Like not even remotely close.
Jeez. That's wild, man. Cause I thought you guys went to the restroom to fuck. Like, and I was like, damn, I guess I shouldn't interrupt them. Like,
yeah, I wish it were that reason, but it's funny because even then, like I wasn't feeling better in the restroom either. And since we were at your place, you know, my girlfriend's thought was like, let me try to take Yuki somewhere like more familiar. So we walked to my car, which is right outside, and we get in my car and we're just kind of chilling in the back seat. But like in my state of mind, I like barely recognized my own car. Like I don't know where I was, and it was pretty late.
It's not a safe environment, or rather, it's not. It is a safe environment, but it's not a safe feeling environment to be in the parking lot in the middle of the night, bro. Like,
no, it was and it wasn't. Like once I was in the car for a bit, I was like, it did feel a bit familiar. But what really fucked me up was just every few minutes, you know, someone would be getting home. It was, like 1 a.m. It wasn't the middle of the night. So there would be cars coming by every couple of minutes, and I would get so paranoid in my head. I'm like, I feel like I'm about to die, and like the police are going to come and they're going to try to talk to me.
You are so lucky that I have a lot of neighbor cops. You are so lucky they weren't driving by, because that was actually super likely to happen.
Oh my God. I would have probably actually died. But yeah, I think we were in the car, between the bathroom and the car, it was like 2 hours. And I was literally telling my girlfriend, I'm like, you are not allowed to look away from me, because if you do, like, I will absolutely lose it. So that was really terrifying. At some point, I don't remember why, but we came back inside. Oh, it was because I really needed to pee. And the whole time I'm in the car, like, think I'm gonna vomit, and my girlfriend's like, close your eyes, like, you'll be fine, like, just like try and relax, or like, try to watch this Netflix show on my phone to distract you. And the reason we left was because I really had to pee, and so I went and peed, and then you were nice enough to let us go into your room. We just laid down on the bed a bit, and we started talking. Like, she would start like telling a story, and it would remind me of something in my memory. And it was like I was just trying to grasp at like threads of memories that I had and were like starting to come back to me, because at this point it was like coming down a little bit. I mean, I told her random stories about like middle school and high school. I told her about like my swim coach. And it was just like, because these were the random only things that I could remember at that point. And like anything that felt familiar, I would try to just keep talking and talking and talking about it, because it felt like I was like getting my memory back. It felt like if I was talking, like I wouldn't like throw up, and I'd be distracted from how bad I was feeling. And so I think we were in there for a while and talking through that. And I don't know, it's probably at like 4 a.m. at this point or something. Like, she's feeling pretty sober. I've like calmed down. I'm like shaking anymore. I'm not like terrified of dying anymore. And at that point, she's just like, okay, like, I think it'd be just like better for you if I drive us home right now, and you're just, in your familiar environment, like sleep in your bed, just recover from that and whatnot. And so we made kind of a just random exit, which I felt really bad for, because even in that state, like I didn't feel capable of like talking to anyone else, of like confronting you. And not that like I thought you would be upset like at all. It was just like, I don't know. Like, I felt like through that trip, we weren't like tripping together necessarily the whole time of it, because you're also like hanging out with your other friends, which was totally chill. And then in my head, it was like, it had just been like me and my girlfriend like through that time. And I don't know, it was just like,
God,
we need to dip and be back in a familiar environment. And honestly, it was like a pretty short drive back to our place. And honestly, we had like really good conversation in that time, and just like me starting to reflect on what I had felt and experienced. And it gave me appreciation for a lot of things, for like everything from being alive and how creative lives like my girlfriend and I have, to actually I realized this while we were talking on the ride back, that this was literally like the first panic attack I've ever had. Like, I've never had, I don't know, like any sort of problems like that. And I had this panic attack while ego deathing, at your place, which I wasn't super familiar with, or like, I guess, comfortable in the back of my head. And it gave me a lot of empathy for my girlfriend and other people I know who have had panic attacks in the past. And she was like, yeah, that's like exactly what it feels like. Like, you think you're going to die. You were like the most terrified you could possibly imagine being. And it really sunk in. I'm like, okay, like now I really feel like I can empathize with that. And I know how just fucking terrifying that can be, because I experienced that. And even now I think back on it, I'm like, it literally feels like the most near-death experience I've ever had. Obviously, there was no risk of me like dying, but mentally, like, that's exactly what it felt like. And even like moments when I was shaking like uncontrollably, like my girlfriend did get a little bit concerned, like, what if this guy like actually has a seizure right now or something? And I was saying shit. I'm like, if I go to sleep, like, what if I like enter the long sleep? Like, when am I going to wake back up? And she did a great job, like, handling my shit while she was also on a very close to the same amount of drugs. So like, God bless my girlfriend.
For real.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. It was rough. Like, definitely something I'm still kind of processing and we'll work through. And I think I'm going to kind of pick and choose like what I want to take from it. And the rest, like, I will never forget this experience, but I do really think that it will be in a positive light in the not too distant future.
Yeah, man, they say that people who do like psilocybin therapy and stuff, oftentimes they expect like the patient to have a really bad trip, but they work with them through that bad trip and not necessarily make them feel better, because they're not really going to make them feel better. Like they just allow that person to work through their own shit, and that is what ends up like curing them from whatever they started the therapy for in the first place. So honestly, dude, like I know it sucked ass, but like you probably just worked through some demons, dude. Like
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. And it's funny you mentioned that. I was actually just reading something today that basically cited some examples of people who had gotten psychedelic assisted therapy for PTSD, alcoholism, etc. And they said that their trips can range from like heaven on earth to an absolute hell realm.
Jeez.
It's like the quote that they say, where it's like you're like in like a living hell. But that even in those worst trips, after the fact, people still say that they got like good out of them and that they ultimately precipitated into something positive for them, which is really unreal to think about. Because I think traditionally, you have like a bad experience in normal life outside of like psychedelics, like that can really scar you for the rest of your life, or just require, immense amounts of work and therapy and potentially psychedelics
yeah, man, it's
to work
perspective
through.
for sure. And at the end of the day, I feel like we just gotta be grateful for these bad experiences too.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say, like, with the amount of times that I've done psychedelics, I thought I would like never have a bad trip. Like maybe I got just a little bit overconfident with it, but it definitely made me just like respect tripping again a little bit more, because it's been a while since I've had like such an intense trip or anything that was like remotely negative. And it definitely put that into perspective, like what a bad trip can feel like for other people. And I was talking with my girlfriend about how, imagine if that was someone's first time doing psychedelics. Like that would definitely be a recipe for not doing it again. And for me, like, to be honest, I'm probably going to trip again this coming weekend. I'm definitely not going to take anywhere near as much, but because I've done it so many times and otherwise I've had just overwhelmingly positive experiences, I feel good enough to like come back to it and do that. But like, imagine if that was my first time tripping. Like I would never want to go anywhere near mushrooms or psychedelics like ever again.
Yeah, I could see that. Damn. Not to sound like an asshole, but I had a great trip that night.
No, dude, I'm really glad to hear that. I'm glad at least one of us did.
I mean,
I had
you
a
guys
terrible
left
time.
me alone for like the majority of it, but I still had a great trip. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if you realized, bro, like there was only 2 hours where I wasn't alone on that trip. It's like the first 2 hours of it. But I mean, it's chill, obviously.
Tell me about your favorite parts of the trip. What you did on such a amount of mushrooms.
So I've got like this home gym in my garage, and whenever you guys went to the car, and like honestly, like I had already seen the show that you guys were watching, so I wasn't like that into it, which is also probably why you felt like I wasn't as involved with everything. Because I honestly wasn't. Like,
Yeah.
because I'd watched that show recently, so I was like, man, it's
That's
a comedy,
fair.
so like you can't really watch comedy twice because you already know all the punchlines and everything. But yeah, when you guys went to the car, I went into my garage when I set up my home gym, and I put on some EDM music and turned off all the lights, and then I was just doing like a full workout, like completely in the dark, and like I was benching and stuff, and I had like safety set up so that like I was just comfortable doing it. But like, imagine just not being able to see anything in front of you. It's like pitch black, but you're just like putting in this crazy effort. It was surreal, man. It was really cool. You just gotta try sometime.
Was it actually pitch black? Like you couldn't see shit?
Well, my eyes adjusted after like a few minutes, but
Okay.
like for
So
a
there was a
while,
little
it
bit of
was.
light.
I mean, there was like the glow from the speaker. Like,
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's something. Your eyes will adjust to the smallest amount of light.
Yeah, especially
Yeah,
when
wait,
they're
so
dilated like that. Yeah.
yeah. No, exactly. Fucking dinner plates. So were you like hitting PRs or what?
Oh, I had already worked out that day, so like I wasn't like really physically in a place to be hitting PRs, but it was just cool, man. I was able to mentally push myself past what I thought I could do in the moment, and I don't know. It was just like I just could feel my entire body. I could feel the blood like pumping throughout my entire body, like especially in my muscles, and it was a really just cool feeling that I definitely recommend you try at some point.
Yeah, that sounds badass, honestly. It reminds me of I used to have a couple of friends who would get high anytime before they went to the gym. And it just kind of made them like more in tune with their bodies. And I don't react that way to weed, but they seem to really enjoy it. And I imagine maybe it was like a similar feeling. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've been high as fuck working out too. Like, I'd say, like, honestly, for me personally, I don't like to work out high that much because, like, you feel everything so much more. And so for me, it's almost more difficult to work out, but you do get a better mind body connection. So, like, I feel like I end up getting like a better pump and shit, but it's harder for me to do as much versus on psychedelics. It's almost the opposite in that I feel like I can just push myself more and I don't feel like I'm nearly as limited by my body, if that makes sense. Like, obviously I am, but I can just kind of transcend what I think I'm capable of just because I tell myself that I can.
Yeah, I think my concern with that would be that to an extent, like psychedelics make me like less aware of my body. Like when we did our trip in New York when it was fucking cold outside, like I couldn't even tell. And there are other drugs that are known for making you not able to feel pain that can really fuck you up. So, I don't know, were you worried that like you push yourself too much and pull a muscle or something? Because that's definitely possible.
Honestly, I wasn't really worried about it. And I mean, I was still being careful and I wasn't like, I was conscious not to like lift too heavy, like something I know I can't lift, right? Like I didn't do anything that was like crazy
That's
outside
fair.
of my bounds.
Yeah, I guess you're aware of how much you're putting on the bar. Yeah, it's not like, the stories of people on like PCP of like trying to lift
Oh
cars
yeah,
and
it's
they
not
like
like that.
actually destroy their muscles to the point where they can't use it for the rest of their lives.
Jeez. Yeah. No, I'm not trying to be like that, bro. Like, but yeah, man, I'm sorry you had a bad trip, but hopefully, gives you some good perspective. And uh, I've like had the beginnings of a bad trip, but not like nearly like what you've experienced. Like, but I know what you mean with the ego death and stuff. Like, I've definitely been in situations where I'm literally like tripping with some of my best friends, and then I just look around and I'm like, well, who the fuck are these people? Like, and it's like it puts you in a little bit of a panic. But luckily, I was able to get myself together, and but I can't imagine if like I was physically feeling like shit. Like the closest I've ever gone to that was like being completely sleep deprived and tripping too hard. Like that was fucking miserable. I felt like hell.
Damn.
But I I was able to get my shit together and just calm myself down. But if I was like felt like throwing up and shit, dude, I can't imagine what that was like. So
Yeah,
I'm
honestly,
just
that
glad
might have
that
been
you
a
came out of it
situation.
in a good spot.
Yeah, thank you, dude. I appreciate that. And in hindsight, that might have been a situation where it wouldn't have been a bad idea to take like a bit of Xanax to calm me down. Like I've heard that's a thing that people do. I've never taken Xanax
Or
personally,
Adderall,
but
dude. To like
oh,
focus you.
really?
Yeah, we had both,
Uh,
bro. Like we had both in the room. Like you could have just done it. Like but yeah, now we know, right?
yeah, honestly, that's not a bad thing to just have like ready on hand just in case. And also, next time I take shrooms, I'm definitely going to try the banana like chitinase
Oh
thing.
yeah.
So
You should
essentially, like
elaborate
eating
on
a
that.
banana. Yeah, yeah. So essentially, the reason why mushrooms, especially raw mushrooms, tend to upset your stomach so much is because they have their cell walls are made of chitin, which is this like molecule or substance that your stomach just cannot process. Like it's just really fucks up your stomach, and that's why you get these stomach aches, and you got diarrhea. Like it'll just always fuck up my stomach. But there's a molecule called chitinase, which comes most prolifically in bananas, that actually gives your body the ability to help break down those like chitin cell walls and digest that more easily. And so it's actually very similar to like lactose and lactase. So like for people who are lactose intolerant, they have to take a pill if they want to eat lactose, and that helps actually digest the lactose enzymes for them. And like the chitin and chitinase situation is very similar. So next time I trip, I'm gonna try the bananas. I will say the chocolates have nowhere near the same like stomach hurting potency as the raw mushrooms. They still do a little bit. I'm still going to try the bananas on that. But next time I take raw mushrooms, which I definitely want to do again with you for the record, I think I'm going to scarf down like two, I think I'm going to scarf down like 2 bananas when we start off.
That's a great idea. I'm going to try that too. Bananas and orange juice. I don't know if the orange juice thing's legit or not, but I've definitely heard that also makes your trip more intense.
I mean, at the very least, it helps wash down the taste of the shrooms, and those tasted kind of bad. Like, I'll be honest, when I was putting away the last mouthful, I was really holding back, like gagging.
I like almost threw up the first time I ever ate them, and I almost threw up when we were eating them the other day. Like I've never had shrooms that taste and smell that fucking putrid, bro. Like,
yeah, the smell was rough. I will say when you first opened the bag, because the smell kind of got trapped in the Ziploc bags. When I smelled that, it was like fucking horrible. It honestly made the taste of them less bad, relatively speaking. But we ate a lot of it. I think I did mine in like 3 or 4 handfuls, and by the last handful, I was like, fucking hell. And all we had was like water and what was it, like Coke or Dr. Pepper? And
yeah, I was like cherry Coke, bro. Like,
yeah, and like I don't like soda. The fizziness didn't help. Like some orange juice would have come in clutch, honestly. Yeah. So now we know for next time. There's a checklist. All right, bananas, orange juice, and like a little bit of like Xanax or Adderall to just chill out.
Yeah, and on my end, I'll definitely be more cognizant and conscious of the environment that we're going to trip in if we're going to do that many drugs. Like, I'll make sure that people aren't coming in to my apartment, make sure people aren't coming over, and also just make sure that everything's like chill. Also, I'll make sure that you and your girlfriend are sitting next to each other on the part of the couch that's
No, dude, and I felt so bad because you gave us like the best seats in the house, and legitimately, like, it's a nice fucking couch. Like, the reclining feature is amazing. Like, I know you spent a ton of money on it, and it was like money well spent. But yeah, I think in that situation, it was just, man, I felt like I was alone in like a big dark world, dude.
Dude, you know what you should have done? Honestly, you know how we had that fold out bed?
Yeah.
So what I did like the next day was I moved that center table off to the side, and I put the fold out bed in the middle of the room in front of the TV. And me and my girl like cuddled and watched a movie. And
nice.
Honestly, if you were doing that while tripping, like, you would have been so much more comfortable. Like, also, like, your stomach probably would have been more comfortable because you'd be laying down. But
yeah, maybe that's true. I will say, as soon as y'all set up the bed, your dog hopped on it, was chilling, and like, I didn't want to disturb your dog. Like, she was being so cute on the bed. Oh, dude, last thing I remembered randomly. So when my girlfriend was like leading me into your room for us to just like chill on your bed and just calming myself down, your dog was in the room and it was dark, and I accidentally stepped on her paw and she like yelped a little bit, like, of course, and it was like completely an accident. But like, in the state of mind I was in, I was terrified. I'm like,
oh my
she's
God,
gonna like maul me. Like, I know that's gonna happen. Like your dog knows me, like, it's chill, but I was so scared. And my girlfriend at that point, just like, as she was telling me later, she's like, oh, like that, like mentally just like made me like snap a little bit. I'm like, oh, like out of all things, like that's like another like piece on top of this stars aligning for Yuki to have like a terrible trip.
Yeah, man, that's why I didn't know that happened. But
yeah, it's fine.
My dog was chill.
yeah, she was fine. And actually, I asked my girlfriend to take her out into the living room because it was just like another variable in play as what was going on. But yeah, it's interesting because I very vividly remember everything that happened. It's just there's like a lot of memories and a lot of stuff that went into it. I'm sure plenty of stuff that I forgot to mention now, but it was all extremely vivid, and I don't think I like will forget or like black out any of it to that extent.
Cool. Well, stay safe, kids, and that's today's pod.
Truly, thank you for listening to the show. We seriously fucking appreciate it. If you want to help us out, just leaving a rating or a comment, you know the drill, would be incredibly helpful. But more importantly, share the knowledge and the love with your friends. Make sure they're getting the information they need on this topic that is so underserved and underappreciated in today's society. We'll see y'all next week.